Croeso i Sgwrsiau ar Arweinyddiaeth a gyflwynir gan Academi Wales. Ar ein podlediad rydym ni'n gwahodd gwesteion i siarad am eu taith a arweinyddol ac yn myfyrio am rai o'r ysbrydoliaethau a'r gwersi maen nhw wedi dysgu ar hyd y ffordd. Welcome to Conversations on Leadership hosted by Academi Wales. On our podcast, we invite guests to talk about their leadership journey and reflect on some of the inspirations and lessons we've learnt along the way.
Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Molly Dacey, and for this episode, I'd like to welcome Thimon de Jong. Thimon specialises in future human behaviour, societal change and business strategy. He has a master's degree in cultural studies with a minor in international business studies. He is a former Insights and Strategy Director at Trends Active, researcher at Freedom Lab Future Studies and Editor-in-Chief of Reload magazine. So thank you so much for joining us. To begin with, if it's okay, I'd like to ask you some quick fire, just get to know you questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So what was the last book that you read?
The last, from cover to cover?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, the children's version from Sapiens, from Harari.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is brilliant, because I listened to... Do you know Harari?
No.
Yeah, he's written this brilliant book, like he's this historian from Israel, and he's written a book how human beings became the dominant species on Earth.
Yeah.
And he's written a few brilliant books. Sapiens is his most famous one. And I listened to a podcast, and he said, I've written the children's version, and it took me 3 or 4 times as long as the adult version.
Yeah.
Because he had to go back and rethink, how do you explain a term like capitalism or democracy? Because you just can't throw that into a children's book.
Yeah.
And he still wanted to explain to children how we became the dominant animal then, not species. So I read it with that in the back of my mind. How do you explain something to children?
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant book. So that
sounds really interesting.
Yes.
What's the last thing that you learned?
Oh, I have little kids. I learn something every day. What's the last thing I learned? Well, yesterday evening here, I had dinner with your colleagues, and I learned that in Amsterdam, where I'm from, there is a famous toothbrush shop. And I've been living there forever, and I didn't know there is a famous toothbrush shop.
Oh, you're going to have to visit now.
I've biked past there like a gazillion times, and I never knew. So I came all the way here to learn something about my own city.
What is your biggest strength?
My biggest strength, I think, is my optimism.
Oh, that's a brilliant strength.
Yeah.
What motivates you?
I think people. So that's should it be more specific? Yeah, people. So interactions with people. I do keynote training, lecturing, workshops, but it's all working together with people. So if you put me behind a computer by myself, that's awful. Yeah. Yeah.
Lastly, for this set of questions, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, my dream used to be to become a professional mountain biker.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm too old now.
No.
But I've been a photojournalist for a long time, and that's something I want to pick up again if I get a bit more time in my hands, or if the kids get a bit older. Then.
Oh, well, hopefully.
I'm too old for the mountain biking. That's a pity.
Thank you for answering those. It's really interesting just to get to know a bit more about you personally. So I do have a couple more of those, but I'll come back to them at the end.
All right.
But a question I think which is a really good place to start is, being a futurologist, is this where you had always envisioned your career going when you were younger?
No, I wanted to become a professional mountain biker, so I thought if I go and study somewhere in the Netherlands, I have to go somewhere with hills. The only place is Maastricht, so I said, all right, I go there, I'm just going to pick a study from the list. So I kind of... I grew up in the 1990s, which was a very positive, optimistic decade, the end of history, and we thought the world would be a wonderful place. So there wasn't a grand plan, or it was just go with the flow, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And the futurist, that only came about when I I was 35. I'm 45 now.
Yeah.
So I started working for a research firm who studied that, and I just liked researching human behavior, and their specialization was human behavior technology into the future, and I thought this is brilliant. So sometimes young people ask me questions like this, and I always say, you don't know when you'll know. It might be when you're 35 or older.
It's quite a nice motto, you don't know until you know.
Yeah, it's fine if you don't know, even if you're a bit older.
That's lovely. Something that I think most of us wouldn't have been able to predict was COVID-19. And we know that a lot changed in the way that people worked, like a big technological change, but I think a lot also changed in like cultures in the workplace and people's perceptions of working virtually. We obviously saw some great progress, like you doing a keynote session at our 2020 summer school while we were all watching in Wales and you were able to deliver virtually. But my question is around, do you feel that our relationship with technology and how people had to embrace it basically overnight has helped improve or diminish organisational cultures in the workplace?
Well, I think it diminished organizational culture, specifically during the lockdowns, because we need to meet each other and see each other physically in person. And many, I'm doing now the air quote here. Yeah. So old people like myself, we've been fine because we've been working together with our colleagues for 5, 10, 15 years. So it was fine. We've built up I sometimes called our engagement battery, so we could go on. But if you're younger, that has been a struggle, and it's one of the reasons that the mental health of young people is not in the best of places. But we actually need to meet, engage physically, and there's a lot of neuroscience. What happens? We're sitting here together in a room. It would have been different if we would have been on screens, and we'd have a similar conversation. So it's diminished organizational culture, but on the flip side of that, it improved a lot of people's personal lives or their work-life balance.
Yeah.
Spending 5 days at the office, traffic jams, and we see a lot of people say, all right, this works for me. I'm 3 days at the office or 2 days at the office and the rest from home or from a remote location. So from a individual point of view, it's been great. But from an organizational culture point of view, it's been quite bad. And imagine being a leader, a manager, managing a team, and one says, I want to be the Monday and I want to be the Tuesday and I want a half day there and I'm going to be remotely. It's to manage that and to find a balance for your team or your whole organization. Yeah. While the hybrid meetings are there, the metaverse is coming. Are we meeting in the metaverse? So it's a huge challenge, and I have a research background. Even we don't know yet what the best balance is. Yeah. So we're in the experimentation phase, and the experimentation phase is not the most fun phase from an organizational culture point of view.
And coming back to you saying it has slightly diminished it, do you think that organisations will continue to embrace the change in technology, or do you think people could kind of slip back into bad habits?
How do you mean bad habits?
Not necessarily bad habits, but the way the norm before COVID of everyone being back in the office and technology being like a last resort rather than...
Yeah, so some organizations are doing that. They're saying, all right, COVID is over, back to the old normal. And you have some organizations that say, we're never going to open a physical office again. So you have the two extremes, and then most organizations are in the middle. We're embracing some flexible hybrid working, but we don't know what the balance is yet. So... as an employee, you now have choice, especially you work for, in a high demand field like IT. There are IT firms that say 5 days at the office, and there are IT teams that say we're fully remote and we'll meet each other physically every month or every quarter, and everything in between. So for individuals, this is great because you can choose something that would work for you. Yeah. But if you look for a general wisdom as a leader, what should I do? It's hard because you have this palette to choose from, and what will work best for you. You have to find that out yourself. Yeah. And we'll probably get some general knowledge at the end of this decade. This is like the new blueprint that works for 90% of organizations, but we have to wait till...
It will be interesting to see how it has worked for everyone by then. I sometimes feel that when people are in doubt, there's a temptation to implement change because they think it's going to fix something, or it's an easy fix to just say, we'll change this. And it feels like sometimes change is just made for change's sake. But do you think it's good sometimes not to make changes? Is there some things that shouldn't just be changed straight away and need time and consideration?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
I fully agree with you. So people don't like change. So professionals like change because it has a very positive connotation, like change. If you're an organization that that's like the mantra for all leaders: embrace change.
Yeah.
If you don't change, you're gonna fail. If you don't change, you won't survive. You're not changed. The world is changing, and you're not changing. But people don't like change. The majority of people don't like change. They like to stick to their old ways. So to just do change because you want a change culture, I wouldn't do that. And I'm going to do a session in about an hour's time. I'm going to start on the current state of the world we're in, which sociologists call a polycrisis. So all these crises at the same time. And one of the effects the polycrisis has on people is that they don't want to change because they're just tired, they're fatigued, they're stressed. Yeah. And if you want to change costs mental energy. And if there's one thing that people do not have in a polycrisis, it's mental energy.
Yeah.
So coming back to your point, I would actually say in this polycrisis, take it easy on the change. Yeah. Preferably baby steps than the disrupt or die mantras from the Americans.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Is there anything about your personal leadership journey that you'd like to change?
Well, I have a few people working with me, I wouldn't say for me, so I don't consider myself a leader like you have here. I do a lot of leadership training, and I always wonder about my person. How would I do if I would lead a team of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000? So working with on this topic, I always wonder what would so more from a philosophical point of view. I'm doing fine for my 4 people I work with. They're all younger, and they see me as I have them called. Well, no, if they say boss to me, I say no. Then say something like mentor or something because boss feels. To embrace the fact that you're leading people, that's a struggle for me. I'd rather have it equal. So that's maybe. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, you are.
I'm rambling on.
No, you are. And I just wanted to kind of finish up on these questions.
Yes.
Following on from that, is there any specific advice that you would give to your younger self?
Ooh, that's a good one. Like from a professional point of view?
From whatever point of view you'd like to take it.
I'd have to think about that. I'd probably need a glass of wine to really answer that question.
That's fine.
There's nothing that comes to mind.
No.
Oh, you planted a seed. Well,
if you ever think about it, reflect, and think of something, you can just let us know.
Yeah, I'm quite happy. So I think young people should make mistakes. So what I can say, like the young people I'm working with now, and the students I lecture at Ydych University, they want to make the perfect choice, whether it's a study or the topic of their master's thesis or their first job, but you don't know. So I always say, don't worry. You have to try and fail. But the pressure on young people, and I think that was good for me in the 1990s. The pressure was not there.
Yeah.
So the advice for my younger self would be that I got lucky. You're lucky. Enjoy it. No, that's not advice.
Yeah, I think that's advice. Enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Yeah, I actually did. So the advice I have for younger people is don't be too stressed. You're 21, you're 25, you'll be fine. Yeah.
That's good. I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing that.
You'll land on your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your stories and advice.
Great questions.
Just a few more quickfire ones before we end, if that's okay. Do you or have you ever played a musical instrument?
Yeah. I played bass in a few bands, a bass guitar, and I used to play saxophone when I was younger, and I play a bit of piano and
very musical then.
And drums as well. Yeah. But bass guitar is my main instrument.
What is your favourite type of food?
Ooh. It's actually Mexican, but then not Mexican like you might know from like a standard tortilla or a taco, but like the more street food. They're called taquerias. Like we have a restaurant around the corner which serves like delicious, high quality Mexican food, which has been eye opening. Yeah.
It's made me want Mexican food now. What's your favourite noise?
Yeah, bass. Yeah, that's easy. I've installed 2 subwoofers in our car to the horror of my wife. It has like an on-off switch, but it's just if there's no bass in the sound system or audio, yeah, I'm always turning up the bass.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Are you more of a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person.
Have you always been a morning person?
Yes.
And lastly, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, that's the easy one. Flying.
Flying?
Yeah, of course. But what would you like?
I'd like to shapeshift.
Oh.
Because I feel like it covers a lot. I could shapeshift into a bird and then I could fly. I could shapeshift into like a fish and I could swim. I feel like it covers a broad range of them then.
That's a better answer than mine. I should.
You can't change it now.
I've never thought of shape-shifting. No, I'm not changing it anymore, but that's excellent to shape-shift then.
Well, thank you again for joining us. I've had a really good time, so I hope you've enjoyed it.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mae ein podlediad sgyrsiau ar arweinyddiaeth ar gael trwy ein gwefan ac mae'r recordiad yma yn hawlfraint i Lywodraeth Cymru. Our Conversations on Leadership podcast is available through our website. This recording is copyright of Welsh Government.